Okay, and we have, you handed me an agenda. What do I do with it? There it is. Meeting is called to order, and I think that the best thing to do when people come is to talk to the people first, and then we can do minutes and all that other kind of stuff. So I know Kurt's here, Dr. Tice is here, Harrison and Paul are here,
Dick Bates.
Dick Bates, and
Dan Regan. Just that, Dan Regan, just
oh yeah, we saw you before, but you've got glasses on now. Hi, Dan.
Hi, anytime I'm reading, you'll see.
So, I think that it might be nice to hear from Dr. Tice, the Conservation Commission Chair first. Would you like to come up here, sir?
Well, I don't have anything to say. I came here in an effort to find out some information because.
Well, come and join us and ask what you need to know.
I don't know that you've got the information. What I would like to see is the minutes of the committee meetings that have taken place and what the comments of the people that have been at those meetings. I came to the meeting that the developer spoke about, the limited opportunities.
The minutes are all posted on the town website. If you go to projects, so there's a list of committees.
Okay,
And you click on the committee, and over there on the right is a list of minutes in order. And you can look at them, you can print them, but you
that's
can't
what I
erase
didn't
them.
know is how to actually access them.
I can show you if you need to, but yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, you just said I go to the town website
Yes,
and ask for, and,
and
click
there's a
on
list up
Yeah.
there
okay,
that says projects. And
Well,
when
it's
you
under
click on
government.
that, you get another list.
okay.
And when you find, or you can just in search, you can put Methodist Hill.
I see, all right.
You can search Methodist Hill. And if you get stuck, you call me and I'll print you a set.
Well, it's all right. I think I can get at them
I
now.
think Ed's gonna show you.
I
right
can
on
show you right here. If you go up to government,
Okay,
you can go to the Methodist Hill Property Use Committee. And then if you scroll down, the minutes are right here.
There they are.
okay. And I also understand that December 5th is the meeting that the Conservation Commission members have been invited to.
Yes.
Okay.
All right, great. Well, that's all I have to
Well,
ask you.
thank you for coming.
Well, it's all right. I'm gonna stay here anyway, but thank you for entertaining me.
Kurt, do you have something you want to say?
I'm still running my nose, so someone else.
Okay. Dan?
I'm here just to listen, interested in the project and,
Okay.
appreciate that there's a.
May I say that we are delighted that Dan has become an alternate on the zoning board. Thank you. Paul?
Thank you.
Yes.
Sure. I like it. I can see better and hear better.
Usually when I take this seat, I get action items. So this is very clear. Let me first give you my name, Paul Bianco. I'm president of Fieldstone Ridge Owners Association. But let me make it clear right now, this is not an official statement of that association, although a number of our association members share my comments that you'll hear right now. Okay, I reside at 38 Birch Lane, which is located across from Methodist Hill Road from the property, in what we refer to as Lot 29. You'll hear it referred to as the 100 acres. So having thought about this for a while, I see that there's three options available to us. Option number one is that the town retains the entire property to be set aside with either of the following sub options: later sale for development, or retention for recreational use, including the coordination of such use with the city of Lebanon and Patch Farms, which border the property on the Lebanon city limit. The second is the sale of a portion of the acreage to private ownership that is the subject to that owner's objectives, whether it's housing, open space, or whatever they care to pursue. The third option is the sale of all the acreage rather to the private ownership for that proprietor's use as rendered in B. I advocate for the first option, sub-option 2. First option is the town retains the entire property, be set aside for recreational use, including coordination with the city of Lebanon and the patch farms that border onto that property. And here's the reasons why. The first comment is why rush? Okay, as we found out on Johnston Road, the devil's in the details. Okay, we learned that an accurate determination would have to be made. For example, if it's used for recreational purpose, what are the costs? And that point was made by the head of the Recreation Commission. Or provide the infrastructure to support a housing development. Okay, I understand that's not the purpose of this committee to go into those details, but I was at the Johnston Road committee meetings and it became very clear that those details become important. And I think when we're looking at costs, that's the case. So point A, there is interest in having a recreational area set aside on the western side of Enfield. Okay, a trail system could be developed, clearing the Class 6 roads, McAllister and Atherton. All of these Class 6 roads can be linked to the Class A trails that are on the Lebanon side of that property, okay, with the same names, to create a trail network that would be of use to folks in that part of the town. Again, what are the costs? What are the revenue streams? You know, points were made of the potential for grants, for volunteer work. But again, those are the details. Those of us who live up in that area, this is point B, have chosen to do so specifically for the rural lifestyle. We pay the taxes just like every other member of the Enfield community, and we include in that view taxes. But we're happy to be part of Enfield, and we're happy to pay those taxes because of that lifestyle. The property is better suited for maintaining that rural lifestyle within the master plan than it is to meeting housing objectives. I'll make this point later on. Third, the area has a rich history. Evidence to that is in published notes, published books, as well as became very clear in the City of Lebanon Council meeting dealing with the patch proposal for that land that was on the other side of the border. I'm not going to advocate, I'm not going to go into any type of detail on that issue, but it became clear that this area has a lot of history to it. Okay. So once that land is bulldozed, it's lost. Okay, we will lose those historical points. Shouldn't those historical points be observed first? There are land concerns, point number 4, with respect to the development of housing on Methodist Hill Road. First, groundwater and supply by the aquifer. We have personally observed deterioration of our water quality, likely as a result of the periodic droughts, although certainly this summer was not an example of a drought. Okay, but it certainly is the trend that we're seeing in terms of climate. Okay, as a consequence, we personally had to introduce a water softener into our residence, which was not deemed necessary when the house was built in 2019. So we are seeing effects. Road conditions and traffic on Methodist Hill presents a significant hazard to future homes, the owners of which would have direct access on the Methodist Hill Road. Fieldstone Ridge does not. It has Birch Lane and Poplar Lane. So we actually have a road that goes to the houses and then comes off on Methodist Hill Road. So that's a lot safer than having a driveway come out on Methodist Hill Road. The preferred locations of homes, which was discussed in the previous meetings, would be located at the bottom of a south-facing rise, and folks come down that rise at incredible speeds. Okay, now I'm sure that there's processes and steps that can be taken to address that issue. Traffic monitoring has indicated up to 900 cars per day use Methodist Hill Road. Most people use it so they can bypass exit 18 to get onto 120, okay, as a shortcut. All right, that road was really designed in the 18th century. Okay, it has winding courses and it has steep grades. And I think everybody here has been up and down Methodist Hill Road. Okay, so more traffic increases the likelihood that there's going to be an accident on that road. Okay. Point number 5 is development is not going to happen anytime soon. For Jim Kelleher's comments at the last meeting, a developer is not going to consider building on that R5 lot, or if it's clustered to 2.5 acres, which was done for Fieldstone Ridge for 2.7 acres for less than $1 million. I've seen that number elsewhere. In addition, that's one of the reasons why we're having so much trouble getting affordable housing. Reasons include interest rates, as I don't have to remind everybody, worker availability, and other factors of the high cost of living in our area. So it's not going to be developed very quickly, and it certainly is not going to be developed for affordable housing. So the above points are not just talking features, okay? And so rather than be based on, rather they are based on the objectives of the master plan. Okay, so even though I've spoken to these points, actually in the scenario in which they were developed, started with the master plan. How does Methodist Hill property fit into the master plan? And unfortunately, it doesn't. Okay, so let's go through that right now. Let's look at the correlation between those points. And these are taken directly as quotes from the master plan. Protects water resources, which would include groundwater. Honors our unique history. Protect and enhance historic structures and sites. Again, both quoted from the master plan. Reinforces Enfield will concentrate growth in our downtown and village areas to preserve farms and forests for the foundation of our rural character residents value. Okay. This point is also reiterated in the provides bullet that is on that portion of the master plan. Okay. Maintains and enhances public recreation access and amenities for all. Expands the range of housing options. Enfield will encourage housing where it can be served by existing infrastructure next to the village or close between the border between village and, for example, Lebanon and Hanover. If I look at those points and put them in summary, it's according to the master plan, the Methodist Hill property is not a preferred location for executing a plan if given that thoughtful process. Okay. So in conclusion, we support the town of Enfield. So why do I make that comment? Because I don't want folks to think that we're NIMBYing Enfield. What does that mean? That means not in my backyard. Okay, we're not saying that we don't want development in our backyard. And in fact, if one were to put houses on Methodist Hill where the preferred locations are, according to Jim, it would not impact either the view or the environment directly in terms of Methodist Hill. It's the accumulation of development that we're most fearful of. Okay. Okay. So we are fully cognizant of the budgetary needs of this town. I sit in on the select board meetings and I know those budget requirements. I just got my tax bill too. We also support the recommendations of the master plan. I read the master plan when it came out and I thought that it was great. It showed a lot of forethought, it showed a lot of planning, and it was well executed. Okay, and so that was why it was my starting point. Okay, the plan is a balance between development, recreational land use, and maintaining the rural New England lifestyle. And see, an analysis which stems from those 2 points would have the town of Enfield retain ownership of lot 29, and perform a detailed assessment for future use, making sure we get through the details in coordination with the master plan, and whether that path forward is one of development, partial development, or the development of a recreational use for that land. Thank you very much.
Hey, could you leave that copy with Mr. Morris?
I sure can.
Maybe we could scan it and
Yep, maybe they distributed.
circulate it to me. Thank you so much.
You're
Paul.
welcome.
That was really
I have
well
a
put
quick
together.
question for you.
Yes, sir.
How many lots are left undeveloped in your development?
The last lot was just purchased and it's on the market right now for sale. The land is, Jim Kelleher owns that lot. He was the gentleman who came here a week ago, 2 weeks ago. And so all the lots have been taken. The last one that was actually built upon was our lot.
I think, Tom, that Jim said he's gonna put a spec house on it. Spec house, the house on Depot Street, $490,900, so it's not gonna be workforce housing.
And the land right now, which is public knowledge, is, I believe, up for sale for $225,000. Just the land,
How much, and it's 2.5 acres?
2.7. And that's public knowledge, so I'm not revealing anything proprietary to Jim's
How can
business.
anybody afford to live here?
Not just here, that's what it costs her everywhere around.
Oh,
Thank you.
Yes,
thank you so
you're
much.
welcome.
Harrison,
I can help your agenda by saying, I have nothing to add further than what Paul said.
okay,
I may come back to visit something, but he did a comprehensive job.
Mr. Baker,
I'm basically here to get information.
we have been joined by two other people, and I'm sorry, I don't know your names.
Parker, Hinshaw, and Ethan,
Yeah.
we're in agreement with Paul, so.
Oh, you were there to support Paul? Okay, so you live up there too?
Yes.
Yes, we're abutters.
Oh,
You know, we're
okay,
right next door and we were here, for that meeting.
yeah, it's been a while.
It has been a little while. And so, I guess from our standpoint, regarding that land, we, had a chance to walk it and, living next door to it, it's always been an ideal for us to be able to acquire it before we knew any of this was going on, when we just had acquired our place. I guess what we've learned since then, just to add to what Paul has said, is there's a lot of wildlife there. And there are historical, what I consider are just stone walls and kind of relics,
Cellar hole.
cellar hole of the past that seem to just speak, when you walk the land. It's a beautiful place, and there's a lot of nature there, and all the wildlife, the moose and the fox and the bears, and things that we've seen there. So, and we've studied it a little bit. And that forest area there has at least hundreds of different flora there. And it's part of a larger forest that, if you don't look at it in terms of the lines of property demarcation, but look at it in terms of nature, it's part of a larger forest. And those are becoming, fewer and further between these days. And so I think it would be our wish that we consider that, the history and the fact that it's part of some natural space, a larger forest that is extending into other, parcels that people haven't developed on. And it would be great to be able to look at that and study it further and understand how that could be used. I mean, our desire is to purchase the land, but with the idea of keeping it open to people here.
Yes.
And to understand it and to help to develop some sort of, trails and places for school children to go, and to understand the nature and the history of this area in its broader context. So that's our hope.
Thank you. Yeah, Interstate 89 really kind of split Enfield, didn't it? Being on this committee, I finally began to understand what a happening place that side of town used to be.
Yes.
Churches, schools, stores, farms. Methodist Hill's my shortcut to Kimball Union, yeah.
Yeah. And all the stone walls, I think, speak to that, as well as the other things.
Well, you know, it took 400 years to build all the stone walls in New England. That's what they said. Anyway, thank you so much. Kurt, you want to speak?
Yeah. Might be a little bit all over the place, because my notes were quick. There's more thoughts I've had since the last few weeks on it. I personally feel the town should retain the property as is. And, one of the reasons is that, as the other people have stated, that, just having a space where the public can go and enjoy nature and hunt, on it. There's no real fishing. There's a stream that does run through the middle of the property. That's, was pretty active this year. I don't know if it's a seasonal or just, or if it's a year-round continuous one. I don't know. But just for a just general nature walking and, type of thing, it's relatively open, it's not so bad. It's not a thick forest that's hard to walk through, even without trails. I located all four corners and walked everything except the back pin to pin corner. I didn't ran out of time to do the full walk for perimeter, but it was easy to create some trails on the property. There's old, but you could, where it was logged 20, 30 years ago. You can just see the stumps there. And just following the skid trails that they created then that are now starting to grow in, could be reopened. Just so for that point thing, and it's also, as she just mentioned, it's part of a larger unfragmented land portion of town. And with Lebanon also, that whole area. I'm assuming the Patches are going to keep their property as a sugar grove for a number of years. That seems to be their intent. So just as a large block of unfragmented land on that side of I-89 is important for wildlife. And then it's, and also you have to think about what's the town going to look like 25, 50 years from now. West Leb was cornfields 40 years ago, 30, 40 years ago. And now it's what it is. So it doesn't take that long and in general terms for a town to go from rural to suburban to something else. It's just a matter of what people want and what they're willing to do or not do. So it can't happen. If you think about what the town looked like 50 years ago and what it looks like today, it's very different. So in the future, in the next 50 years, the town's gonna be very different than what we see it. And to have a place that was protected today is for future generations. And think about the places that we can walk that someone prior to us preserved. For whatever reason, they did it, and now we get to enjoy it. So, and being that part of town, also far from town services, heavy development out there is just gonna be expensive to the town. Because the town still has to respond when there's an emergency out there. Lebanon, like I said previously, Lebanon will probably be there before us, but Enfield still has to show up. So you can't say, well, it won't cost us anything, it will. That's on that. And then there was talk of sell it and get the tax revenue for it. You know, everybody's, like everybody else is concerned about my taxes and rather pay less than more. I'm never in favor of paying higher taxes, but it's cost of what they are. Cost of, a lot of town costs are fixed. We have no control over them. The parts that we can control, I think the town should look at. But the revenue from this particular parcel, if they'd sold it, all they're going to get, because it turns out there was a court case several years ago, I didn't write down the dates, that basically the New Hampshire Supreme Court said that anytime the 3-year limitation for collecting 100% of the sale revenue is gone. It's still on the books. The state legislature never changed the rules on the books, but the Supreme Court said throw it out. And so the only back taxes the town will receive, you already did these numbers, but
Yeah, we already talked
about
it, but yeah.
24,500-600, somewhere in
Yeah,
that
we can
range.
recoup the taxes and any costs.
Yeah,
So legal fees, administrative fees, stuff like that. So it'll probably be somewhere in that $30,000 to $35,000 range is what we.
yeah, the sheet that I got from Julie,
Well, that's,
trying to make sense out of.
that's the taxes.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
we have fees on
yeah, there are
top
other
of that.
fees involved, but it's not gonna be a lot.
No.
That's all the town will receive, from a straight sale. And then if it is sold and the person who buys it puts it into current use as hardwood, which is most 90% of the property is, unmanaged, the town will receive an annual tax bill of $133 for current use property. Because there's no services needed to service a vacant woodlot. So the current use taxes are very low. That's why people like to do it. Now, if the town decides to subdivide and carve off X amount of lots and then retain the rest, I think the town's on the hook for that, still on the hook for the cost of subdividing. I don't see anywhere in the RSA's where it says the town can recoup that kind of cost. Cause that's separate from any penalties and fees involved.
Yeah, you could subdivide it and do that. I'd have to do a little legal work to see if we could get that cost, or you could sell it with the requirement that it's subdivided.
Yeah. Yeah, and someone else
And then there
pays,
would be no-
someone else pays the cost, yeah,
But
yeah.
if those, can I ask a question? Cause look at me. If those lots sold for, that lot across the street sold for 2.25. And if we put in lots and they sell for 2.25, the people that failed to pay the taxes will get all that money.
That's, there's a whole list of, this is only a partial of the, taxes for the RSA's and
Yeah.
taxes and for deeded property. And I read through them, not a lawyer. The best I can tell is there's nowhere in there, because that's in a not associated cost to take the property for taxes. That's a cost borne by the town, would be borne by the town.
Yeah.
If the town decided to pay the surveyor to do the subdivision and then sold those lots, I don't see anywhere in the RSA's that I could find where the town could retain that revenue. But there's,
No, and
it was complicated reading.
I can add to that. There is another law that if the town decides to keep the land, then we have to pay the difference between what the actual value of the land is and the recovery taxes. So there's a fee that the town will have to pay to that owner on top of,
What happens if you can't find the owner?
we know who,
I know you do, I just.
you can find the owner. If not, it'll have to go to the state and be in the lost money fund. And
Now, and it was brought up at the last meeting, it's in the minutes also, that, there were people that understood that there was a statute of limitations for the owner to get the proceeds from the sale.
there's not, that's the court
Yeah,
case.
yeah, that was the court case.
There is no statute. of
Basically
limitations.
overruled.
So there
Yeah.
is no statute of limitations.
Yeah, it's still on the books.
No, the court
Which is-
case really said it was their land. You took it because they didn't pay their taxes. Once you get the tax money back, they deserve what the land is worth.
Yeah, I don't think I made a copy of
Yes,
that
Ms. Hinchin?
court case.
I think
Um,
there's legal opinions on both sides of that. It's complex, but, we've done a little research on it before we knew that it was, tax, default situation. And what you say is true. What you say is true. There was a court case that judged that. That's true.
Yeah.
And there's also kind of most of the court cases that happened other than that one, kind of are on the other side of that ledger. So I think it's shades of gray. But I think that it kind of defies common sense that if the town receives it or somebody receives the land, that there could never be a time when that land could be sold or done something else with. So, but I just think that from what our lawyer said, that there's cases on both sides. And, so that's, there's nothing about it.
Further, just to understand this better then, if the town keeps it, they're on the hook to give the previous owner the value of that land. Is that right, what you're saying?
Yes, that's what I read and that's what our attorney.
And who determines the value of the land?
There would be an appraisal assessment done.
So would the same be true if it was donated? If we decided to donate it to some conservation committee?
We'd have to look into that. There'd be a lot of some legal work. If we decide that that's what we want to do, then we can ask that question, but
Well, the Upper Valley Land Trust didn't choose to come to a meeting, but if you don't, I could see how it would be really complex to donate it to something like that because of where the money goes and what it's worth and all the rest of that. And I could see that UELT would not be interested in the complexities of it.
yeah, they were not very interested in this property when I called them.
Yeah.
Hence
Well,
the
I'm
reason they
beginning
didn't
to
go.
understand more about why. Yeah. Have we heard from everybody in the public here? I think.
Kurt's still
it-
going.
Dr.
Oh,
Beaufort
I
is
just-
there.
I just got a few other quick comments about.
Oh, okay, sorry, Kurt.
And just the other thing about that property is because there is a class 6 road that runs through the center of the property in a east-west direction. That connects with what Lebanon, has classified as class A or B trails. I'm not sure what classification, but they reclassified what was a class 6 roads on the Lebanon side of the line as into a trail. It makes a connector trail from Enfield side of Methodist Hill Road all the way down to Route 120, and then to the south where it picks up Atherton Road on the also Enfield Lebanon side of, well, Enfield side of where Methodist Hill Road makes the 90-degree turn. So there is that already pre-existing trail network on the property that could be expanded and used along with any other type of trail that the town, if the town chose to.
There's McAllister Road that
Yeah.
goes from Methodist Hill Road and joins Atherton Road.
Right.
And McAllister is a class 6 road, right?
Mhm.
And
Yeah,
then
we got
on the Enfield portion, yes. Side
Yeah.
of the line.
And Lebanon and the Patches are fighting over Atherton Road. I don't think that's been resolved yet, has it?
Yeah, I don't know, I haven't heard the final decision on
But that,
that.
that was one of the things that has come up here because there's not anything we can do about it anyway.
Yeah,
Until
yeah.
Lebanon figures out what they want to do.
Mhm. Yeah, and just sort of along that same line, I don't know if this, it's more of a solicitor one, but being it's on this property, there is a sign, a road, sort of a road sign for a better term, at the beginning of the Class 6 road in Enfield on Methodist Hill that talks of, mentions sap lines crossing the roads. One, there's no sap lines on the Enfield side of the town line. And so that sign is irrelevant to Enfield. And I don't know who placed it there. I talked to Jim, he wasn't sure. And that sign should be replaced with the sign stating it's a class 6 road, similar to the other signs on the class 6 roads in Enfield.
Yeah. Have it?
So,
Or?
no, I think that's it. I just, like I said, the opening is like, I feel it should be retained by the town, for recreational purposes. Even if it's just, walking in the woods and hunting for people that hunt. I personally don't, but A lot of people do, as you well know, and 100 acres is a good size to hunt on. So,
Thank you.
Mhm.
I think we ought to ask Dr. Buffet if he has something to say.
Right.
Does he? Is he there?
Are you there? Hello? Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. I am here primarily to learn more, but coming to this meeting from a perspective of a lot of interest in outdoor recreation, including hiking and winter sports related to this sort of property, as well as my other recreational activities, but also as a with the concern about budget and financial impacts of this. I was in strong support of the Johnston property, retaining the whole thing, which is not turned out to be the recommendation. But I am interested in hearing, given the other recreational sites that we have in this town, what is specifically unique about this property. Thank you.
Well, it borders on Lebanon on a long side, and Patches are interested in expanding their sugar bush along the western border. Are Mr. and Mrs. Hinshaw, and they would like to see it in conservation. What else is unique? It's wet.
But unique to what, David? I mean, all properties are unique and.
Well, unique in terms of what additional compared to the other recreational properties that the town currently owns, and that's coming from a neutral perspective, not pro or con.
The one thing that's unique about it, as far as that's concerned, is where it is. It's on the western side of Enfield where there isn't anything.
Well, there's whaleback.
Well back, but as far as hiking trails. Or
Harrison, you have your hand raised.
David, you brought up a good point, and I appreciate what Barbara said. All land is unique in its own way. I think from my perspective, as someone who's lived there for 52 years, there were class 6 roads in much better shape than they are now, particularly McAllister. And should there come a time when we get together with Lebanon and knit McAllister to Atherton to Route 120 to Lebanon, then I think that's going to be a considerable and very admirable trail system. And I think, well, Enfield is embarking with a trail master on improving the trails. And as someone whose kids learn to cross-country ski and snowmobile on those trails, that was a great experience for them. And it will be a great experience for any young family growing up in or around Methodist Hill. It's not available now because it's really fallen into disrepair. But in many ways, as proud as we are of Methodist Hill, we are a bit of a stepchild of Enfield. We don't have a Hughes Park. We are a distance away from the grocery store. This could be one thing that that the town could consider as a recreational value for people who are split apart by the interstate on this hill, Methodist Hill. And as someone who's been fortunate enough to use those trails in the past, I think, Dave, it's not unique, but it has a lot of potential to it, and it's got a great view and a good experience for a lot of people on Methodist Hill should those trails become available.
Well, thank you. I have done a very little bit of walking, hiking in that area, but so thank you very much for your insight.
Thank you, David. I just have dollar signs dancing in my head after what we've heard today.
you do?
I think that probably the public comment is done and it's time for the committee to do its own deliberation. And I hope somebody will tell me what you saw on Saturday, because I couldn't go. Somebody?
You can see clear to Killington. On a nice clear day, you can see Killington ski slopes.
Wow.
It's pretty,
You can see them from the top of King Road too.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
What did you see
I go out there on Saturday.
besides wet? Did you go, Jason?
I did go. I mean, there were certain sections that were wet for sure, but other than that, we just saw the land. I mean, I'm not really sure what you're looking for, to be honest.
I'm just looking.
It was
for
a piece of
somebody
land
to
we
tell
walked
me what
around.
You saw, because I couldn't go.
I mean, it's a pretty piece of property. As we've talked before, probably 3/4 of it's not developable anyways, very hilly. You got a stream running through the middle of it, which is very pretty also. We walked along a good part of the stream.
Mhm.
The view really is not from the property, it's actually from the Patches property,
Uh-huh,
which abuts it.
yes.
And that view is spectacular. It's a really nice view.
Oh, their farm, you could see forever from their
Right.
farm.
So the view on the backside is very nice.
Yeah,
And it's overgrown. I mean, there's definitely, you have to work it. You would have a very hard time walking it the way it is now. The Class 6 road is almost impassable
uh-huh,
as far as walking is concerned. And certain areas it's clear enough, you can work your way around, but it's by no means a set of trail system at all there now.
okay. Thank you. Moving right along, committee deliberation. You haven't said anything tonight, Ryan.
Not true.
Oh, you getting more sleep?
I mean, yeah, I'm getting a little bit more sleep with 2 under 2. I mean, I'm starting to develop an opinion. I don't see
Okay.
a lot of upside for subdividing and selling and developing. I think you have an opportunity to be thoughtful with land. And so, you know, taking that into account and the fact that there aren't a lot of, opportunities that come along like that to develop a trail system that can connect to other municipalities and other areas, Lebanon, and keeping it open for the public to access, or even just, preserving that land that was dramatically changed by I-89 getting put through. I mean, that was a very large wildlife corridor, right? So the more you start driving development, you start driving those animals into different areas, you start ending up with, say you turn, I think who had mentioned it, West Lebanon or these areas into, they're not pretty. You start having an impact on a lot of the things that you can't undo. So you can't easily undo that. That being said, it's why we have a public meeting. That's why there's public discourse. But I think there's not a lot of upside in the town trying to develop and profit off of the land, because clearly that's not really going to happen, right? It's just not going to happen. And there's not a lot of potential there for housing in general. So, and it's not an environment economically where it makes sense to be, trying to do that. I think retaining the property is a safe option. It's a known entity, and it keeps our options open as a community for the future.
What's the most cost efficient, the least cost to the town? We have to give back the tax money, right?
Not the tax money.
Not that we have to give back everything but the tax money.
From the sale, yeah.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
As long as I finish, I was
I was-
here. Oh, I'm sorry.
Can we recover, if we decided to put those suggested building lots along Methodist Hill Road, can we recover the town's cost of surveyors and advertising and all that kind of stuff? That is,
If we subdivided, it's not certain that we would be able to get the surveyor and the subdivision costs back. advertising the land for sale, all those things would be recoverable.
So some of it's recoverable.
Yeah.
So one of the things, what I'm trying to say, Barbara, is I think we have to look carefully at what it will cost us to do X or Y or Z.
Absolutely.
Because there's no profit for the town in this project. Is that correct?
No, not really.
Okay.
So I have a question about cutting the trails, maintaining the trails, getting it up to a safe, entity. If the Henshaws were to purchase it, would you be responsible for all of that?
We would work with the town.
And you'd work with the town, because that's a significant cost unless it's all done with volunteers.
Well, it could be done with volunteers. The trail master himself, is a part of a group of volunteers that, we have assigned to maintain the trails here in the east portion of Benfield. And he has rebuilt, he and his volunteers have rebuilt bridges, and walkways along the Big Nell Brook already for this year. And he plans to, present a proposal to rebuild.
Is he himself a volunteer or is,
Yes.
wow,
Conservation Commission has made a donation of $1,000 to the Highlanders group that belong, that is basically run by the I think it's Trail Alliance. So the Conservation Commission has taken upon itself the responsibility of hiring or acquiring this trail master and his volunteers, and town has put out requests for volunteers from Enfield themselves, which have been honored by some of the people. So we have a mechanism to carry on trail improvement and maintenance already.
and you feel like the design is already embedded?
I beg your pardon?
There's really a design already embedded, your little ones used? All this,
Partially, yes. McAllister is very debatable. Pretty much. There may be better ways than using McAllister.
Yeah, there would need to be trails made and built, and it really depends on how it's done. If it's sold to a private entity, we could help coordinate some volunteers, but the town would not invest money into the actual trail system because we don't own the trails if they're on someone's private land. But there is a cost to that too. I mean, we have a
Right.
volunteer trail master, but we have the outlay of costs for materials and things to maintain and build the trails. So it could be minimal, but there's always a cost when you own something and have to maintain it.
So to answer your question, we would work with the town to establish and work with the Conservation Commission, folks here, who are involved in this, to create something, a resource for the town and for recreation. And honestly, for young people to be able to experience and learn what has been here before and maintain that and all.
so you would probably be stewards of this land. So there would be a person or,
Yes, and that's our intention.
And where does Mrs. Patch come in?
Well, I was gonna say on the sale part of this, just remember, we cannot recommend to sell to someone. It's gotta be an open public sale for anybody if we decide to sell it.
It just
Yeah,
feels more,
you'd have to advertise it and people would have to bid on it.
Yeah.
Or we can put a stipulation on what it's used for, correct?
We can put stipulations on what it's used for. The other way that we've done it is tell us how much you'll pay and what you're gonna use it for, and the select board can make a decision on what they feel is best for the town. But
And
it
we're
has to be an
supposed to
open public process.
semi-dangerous to do
Yeah,
that.
well, we're supposed to come up with some options for the select board to consider. And because we've done all the talking.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
we're
this-
looking.
This committee's supposed to
We're
come up with
listening.
a recommendation to push forward on what they think should happen. And the select board will read that and make a determination.
Yes, sir.
You've brought up the potential costs for maintaining this property as recreational property to the town. If you decide instead to develop the property, we've talked about the cost to survey, some of that other to prep it for sale. But if that land gets developed, becomes residential, are there other added costs to the town going forward in terms of infrastructure, services? Doesn't that have to be taken into consideration as well?
Yeah, what was your name? And I'll.
Dick Bates.
We've
37
talked
Birch.
about that quite a bit because getting an ambulance and a fire truck and a policeman across 89 and up there is lots of miles and lots of money. We have talked about that. Mr. Kelleher was an interesting guest, and what he said was it would be too expensive for a developer of any kind to build housing anywhere on that 100 acres, except right along Methodist Hill. That there could possibly be, I think it's 4 or 5, possibly 6 house lots. Each house lot's required by zoning to have 250 feet on the road. That we could put those lots and they could be sold. And that's about 25% of it. And then the other 75% is not worth developing. It's too expensive to develop it. Thanks to Barbara, we got a developer to come and give us some figures
I thought
that
was a great
we,
presentation.
we
But
hadn't thought
Yeah,
about.
there'd
But
be,
if you take that, if you chose to do that and used up all the frontage for individual lots, wouldn't you basically be blocking off all access to the other 75% of the land for
No.
any kind of use?
no, not necessarily.
Not
There's a
necessarily.
Class
I
6
don't,
road
I
in
don't,
there
I don't
that's the
think we
town.
thought that we would develop the whole frontage.
Yeah, and then there's
The-
requirements that you could put on a developer.
There's also road.
One of the
improvement.
opinions that have come forward is, sell the land with a requirement that there's 3 to 5 houses built and there's some sort of public access maintained to the back. You don't subdivide it, the town doesn't pay for that, it's sold to a developer to develop 3 to 5 housing lots, and that's a requirement of the sale.
I think, Mr. Bates, whatever we do is gonna cost the town money.
Not necessarily. The one I just said wouldn't cost us anything.
Really?
No, we don't have to develop anything.
No,
don't
but
have to
don't we
subdivide.
have to give whatever we get for it to the guy that used to own
Yeah,
it?
but that doesn't cost us anything.
Oh, okay.
They give us money and we pass it on.
Oh, all right.
The town is sounding more and more like a real estate agent and a bank. Just kind of passing money around, selling property, buying, very real estate agent.
It's one of the things towns get stuck with.
David has a question,
David? David has a question.
or his hand is up.
Yeah, okay. As a member of the Cardigan Highlanders, and although I wasn't working on Bicknell Brook, I'm very aware of what the Trailmaster Craig Sanborn planned and did with his crew there. The building and and then maintaining of trails is definitely labor intensive. We do it with volunteers, but it is dependent on their availability at the time. From Craig is working very hard to get a bigger crew. But that's not going to be an easy network of trails to build or to rejuvenate from the Class 6 roads. So, and will not come without some material expense.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Kurt's got his hand up.
Yeah, just sort of following up with David's, and you don't have to create trails on the property either to have it open to the public. Trails are nice, but just the property is open, easy enough to walk through without, I felt, without requiring a dedicated trail. So that's, it can be done as piecemeal or not at all, as an option. And the other thing, far as regarding selling it to somebody else, selling the property, unless it's in the deeds itself, that it will remain, the undeveloped portion will remain open to the public, you have no control over that. Anybody can say whatever they want in an open meeting, but when paperwork is signed, if it's not in writing, there's no guarantees. There was several years ago when the property behind Lakeview condos was being sold by the town. People were saying, "Oh, I'm going to allow public access. I'm going to put an easement on the property," and it was a big selling point to the select board at the time. Now, I do believe they do allow people up there. I haven't been up there for a number of years. I don't think they post it, but there was never an easement put on the property either. So some future owners, not just the first owner, you have to think about the second and third owner, what they plan to do with the property. And if it's not in writing, you have no say in the matter. And that's why that's why the Upper Valley Land Trust, which I'm a volunteer monitor for, so I'm very familiar with that process, is very adamant about somebody goes out there, looks at the property, checks the easements, requirements, make sure they're fulfilled, and there's no violations, and they'll take you to court. They will take the person to court if there's a violation.
They do.
And now I don't think the town will feel too strongly about taking someone to court over a violation, because it's gonna cost the town money with no return. Other than saying, you messed up and we're gonna sue you.
Well, I put my Haverhill farm in the land trust because I wanted it to stay. Yeah. Thank you all. We've been working for an hour and we still have some minutes to look at and to plan for our next meeting. So, thank you. You can stay and listen or you can leave, but we got minutes to do and planning for our next meeting. Okay,
Thank you.
thank you for coming.
Did you do enough deliberation? Did you do enough deliberation? You asked one person.
I think so. At this point, we've been deliberating for an hour on and off and on and off.
We have another public comment meeting, so I think
We haven't.
there's still information in front of you.
And then we have a moment where we can just sit and yak.
Okay.
And then we're gonna come up with a recommendation or report. But I think that, with the storm due to start tonight, that we should
Okay,
finish what we need to finish.
just seemed odd you asked the opinion of one member and not all of them.
But just to clarify, I did have a question for you. This was the first time that I heard you say this. If the town retains the land, we're gonna have to pay the previous owners based on whatever the appraised value of that land is.
Yeah, there's a really gray area right there but the way the law's written and the way the Supreme Court issued that ruling, that the town's probably gonna have to pay.
But I agree with that from an ethical standpoint, personally, that's just my opinion, but it would be nice if we could know what that figure could be, because if we're talking about one building lot across the street going for $225,000, what is 100 acres gonna be going for? Because that's the cost that.
It's gonna be a lot of money.
Yeah.
That'll force your hand. That'll force your hand.
It'll be hundreds of thousands.
Yeah.
But if the Henshaws purchased it for a reasonable,
You can play the game too. I mean, you could sell it for $35,000.
that's how I got my house.
The other person gets nothing and. But I
Except that
think
you'd
if
have
you
to
did
use it
something like
with
that, you
appraisal
have
to
to
have
have
that
some pretty strong restrictions and contingencies to make sure that it was beneficial to the town.
Do we legally own that 100 acres at this point? It's ours. And
Then-
our
so then
only
why do you have to
obligation
purchase it?
is to pay the guy the taxes.
Hmm?
The only obligation, the only financial obligation we have, right, is passing back the money that,
Not the taxes,
no,
the difference.
the
between
difference
taxes
between
due
the
and
taxes
The
and the
value of
thing,
the property.
yeah.
Doesn't this happen all the time when, property gets passed for lack of taxes?
9 out of 10 times we sell the property for less than what the taxes are due. We put
Really?
them to auction, we sold 3 lots or something last year for like $6,000 a piece. The town gets the money when that goes back on the tax rolls and someone built something.
But that property went on auction or something?
Yep.
Yeah. So that's the danger that we're looking at, is putting this on auction in case.
Not really a danger, if you,
Well,
I mean,
but if
it'll
a
go out and
developer-
then the select board will decide what they wanna do with it.
But that means that just anybody could purchase it for the stated price. Right?
No. I mean, yeah, we still have the option as a town to sell it for whatever the high bid is or not. We, being the town, the select board, can ask as part of that process, what are you gonna do with that? Is that beneficial to the
But
town?
this is what I mean about seeming like a real estate agent. If the town owns that property, I don't understand why the previous owners who neglected it and their tax obligation would get
I think it's,
paid.
and I don't know why the court
It
sided
pays
this
off.
way, but I look at that as an ethical thing. So the people that own the property before owed the town, what, $25,000? And in retribution, the town took a piece of property that's worth $250,000. And that's just, to me, not ethical. You've taken something worth significantly more value than what you were owed. And I think that's why the court would have decided that if you're gonna do that, that's fine, but they are entitled to the money they would have gotten because of the property that they own.
But if the town puts these houses, these other properties on auction and sells them, do you take that as a lump sum and hand it over to the people who were negligent?
Anything over and above the taxes and fees.
The silver lining is that the town can put limits on, like, so in no other private sale can your realtor be like, I'll show your house, but these are the rules about who I will sell it to. Like in this setting, there's an advantage here, because this, from what I understand, that is an advantage that the town can stipulate exactly what can or can't be done with that sale of land.
Yeah.
It's not just like auction block, you can,
There's a lot of towns that
So-
put out there, and this is a big economic development tool that. We wanna develop this into housing, tell me what you're gonna do, we like your project best, we'll sell you the land for $1.
But that seems unethical.
It's not, because we get affordable housing and the tax rate that comes from that, and there's a huge benefit to the town.
I think of what attracts you to this area. Like when my wife and I moved up here, I'm not gonna lie, we went to Queechee.
Yeah,
Because Queechee, you can go hike. There's endless hiking. You could snowshoe.
I know,
For
but that's like,
days.
that, we call
For
that
days.
New Jersey North.
Yeah, but there's areas to hike that are nice, right? And that was an attractive part of that area. And then we found other areas that you could hike that were, not
Yeah,
beach.
but you would have had a stigma on you.
But where did we'd stop there and get food. We'd stop and go to Jake's and Queechee. We'd buy our groceries
I
there.
love Jason.
So just thinking about things that attract you to Enfield, a feather in the cap of having another recreational area that you can hike, that's like something active for people to do. aside from the lake in the summer, or private trails, or the rail trail, right? Like having something like that as an attractive part of the town, so that's sort of where I'm caught up with, having 4 more $1 million houses on a nice hill doesn't really change. That doesn't make it attractive for most people, right? Most people aren't gonna be like, oh, it's cool, there's 4 more $1 million homes. Yeah, that's just that's a more restrictive area for people to even travel to at that point, right? Because are they really gonna park their, was I gonna park my 15-year-old car in between these 2 mansions and hike in between their house to get to behind their houses to go hunt or snowshoe? No, I'm not gonna do that on someone's.
Homeless, and we need to.
I'm just practically speaking, the 75% of the land that could be retained for public is kind of that's useless. Like you can put that into a document and you can stipulate that, but who's actually gonna know that you can hike behind $5 million homes?
It doesn't make, yeah.
I'm not gonna
Mr.
go
Keller
behind the
really-
Hershaw's
I
house and
think
go
he-
hike, right? There's no way I'm gonna do that. So it's very prohibitive to put, it's a little bit disingenuous to say we can preserve 75% of the land for the public when that's hidden behind the 25% of land that's developed in a way that is not very accessible to the public. So that would be my concern, just from a young person that didn't have a lot of, access to hiking trails. Like it'd be nice to have a place like that in Enfield that there's a reason to stop at the exit, right? Besides gas.
It should, they'll be all acceptable.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think
that's-
I think
that's
that's a
the-
solvable problem though, like if we're the log landing where we park to go in, for example, I'm not proposing this as
Right.
part of it necessarily,
Yeah,
but if you
yeah.
had a spot that you've made just a little parking area where the trailheads sort of are, then it's not a big deal anymore
But-
now,
but
because
yeah.
then the land is very accessible.
But
and I
that
think
gets
that's very useful.
negotiated not by us, that gets negotiated by the select board on the final recommendation on the sale.
But it
So
can be recommended. by
it can be recommended, but we don't have control. That's a lot of control we're giving over, not that we have a lot of control in the end result anyway, but I think our point we have no control, right? But we can at least make a recommendation that we think is more or less approximating what we envision for that.
And hopefully it'll pay a
You know.
little bit of
David's
attention.
still with us?
I don't know if that makes sense, but.
Yes.
He has a hand up.
Okay, is that the first hand he
I
had
don't
up?
know. I didn't take his hand down. If he did,
Oh, okay.
he can tell you.
Hey, David.
I did have my hand up. I mean, it does seem that you could retain a lot or a right of way between 2 properties and a small parking lot as a trailhead to get there. It obviously would need some planning, but if you were going to sell it, you could retain access from the road all the way up into the remainder of the property.
Okay. Thank you. I would like to move us on to the
I was gonna
minutes
say, we probably
of
should since. we've got
October
everybody-
17th. Well, I could
Get
go.
out of here. We're done. Now let's talk.
Right.
Okay, you know how to spell David Frack's real name.
Has everybody seen
I got
these?
that.
Yes.
We can
Yeah, well,
approve these
there's,
amended. Well,
Yeah, my name's.
nobody's commented on them.
Why people put E's under my clause.
I'm so jealous when people have names that could possibly be mis.
David Frack's name needs to be corrected. And that's about as far as I've got. Other
Is yours
comments
in
from
the
other people, or
appendix
do you
one on
want a
the
few
top?
minutes to read?
Jim Keller part.
I ran it.
the back.
Yeah.
Okay, will somebody move to put the minutes on the table so we can discuss them?
I'll do that.
Okay,
I so move.
thank you.
Mr. Thies's name is spelled wrong.
Who's
I'll
this?
go through and look at these.
What's Tyson's name? Someone?
Or Mr. Claus.
Yeah, twice.
It's,
Autocorrect.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That should be.
Barbara was, look at that.
What?
You said you could never have your name misspelled.
wrong too.
Is it really? I'm so excited.
Wait, it's not Johnson.
Spelled wrong twice.
There you go.
I'm so excited.
Oh, wow, twice.
I can't show me where it is. I can't.
Second to last page, next page. Second to last line, it's.
So don't
Oh,
say,
both names are spelled wrong.
Jerry Tice's name, Jerry V's. I like that.
so you got something out of this.
Jerry Tice's
There you go, we're
name,
good.
it's,
Well, I do have a funny story about
P-H-E-I-S.
this. What I do is design books.
And they got Tom's name,
And
last name
someone
wrong,
asked me
and they
to
spelled Barbara's
give
name
myself
wrong, but
credit.
other than that, everything else
I
is
said,
all
no,
right.
I never do that.
Fix the
Go
name,
ahead.
said.
I spelled my name Barbarata Johnson.
Why,
By mistake, I didn't do it on purpose.
why did you think some of these things should be deleted? Or didn't you do that?
No, that was, Kevin wrote the first draft and I added the red part thinking that it should be added.
Oh, okay, so what we've got, this is
The one-
what we got, all right, so this is what we're working on, guys.
Yeah,
And on page 2, there's names that need to be corrected, and in the very first line, there's a D missing from side. The minutes are on the table, comments, corrections, outcries of pain and rage.
Later.
Any more?
It was 6:30 and then they were.
Any corrections?
I don't know,
My
yeah,
gambler told me.
I'm listening to hear if there are more corrections.
It's all a joke.
do we have a second on
Well, we got them on the table, we're gonna have a second, then we're gonna vote.
we have to have a second technically before they're on the table.
Well.
I second.
All right, second, they're on the table. All right, and we gotta correct the names on the second page.
Yep, got that.
And, that D up there in the first line.
On the second page?
Yeah, it says deleted Z because it say roadside.
It does say road.
It's
It should
corrected.
say roadside, but
It's-
roadside is one
You're
word.
looking at the wrong ones.
Roadside is what, no, this is all I've got.
It's correct.
It's corrected here on
Yeah,
the most recent one. Roadside.
I don't have that one.
But it's not one word.
Do I?
Right, now I have to wait.
Maybe this is the one I should have. I went through all those papers and got rid of the extra ones today. Roadside is one word.
Yes, it is. I second that motion.
Jerry Tice's name
Science.
and Tom Claus's
English.
name and Barbara's name, those all, we just,
Yep.
okay.
You really have to work hard to do that.
All those in favor to approve the minutes as corrected, signify by saying aye.
I,
Any opposed? No.
I'll abstain.
Okay. What else do we need to do tonight? Next meeting is December 4th?
Fifth.
5th. And, it's gonna be, you said it would be the public,
It's another public comment session focused on the people that attend online if they.
okay. What I would like to have us do, because I like the system, is at this point, we ought to start thinking about what we're gonna recommend. Not recommend it now, but think about it. So I'd like to have a go-round where each of us has a say about what we think we should discuss about our final thing's gonna be. Does that make sense to you?
Sure.
Yeah, and I would like to have that go around, so we've got stuff on the table that we can take home and think about what the other people think about. Then we have a deliberative session, and that's when we're gonna come up with a recommendation.
We'll put deliberative session on the agenda, but that could be your go around.
Yeah, that's what go around, a deliberative session, that's how I like to do go around, it works. And then for the deliberative session, we're gonna sit down and we're gonna look at, it'll be in the minutes what everybody said, and we're gonna look at what everybody said. And we're gonna come up with a proposal. And I personally think that we might have a list of proposals. We might just not do anything. We might sell it for $1 million, et cetera, and so forth. So that we have a list of what the recommendations are, and then we should choose one that we think's the best. And then you and I will sit down and we'll take pieces of the minutes and pieces of discussion, and we'll prepare not more than 2 pages report to the select board of what we did, because they can all go read the minutes if they want to. But we want a concise, clear report that says this, and that we will go to the select board. I will sit there. We will go to the select board meeting and we will present our report to them in person. And we will, of course, let you know if you want to come and back us up. Is that okay?
The report should be given to the committee for review too before. it
Oh,
goes to-
yes, before it goes to the select board. You get to see it and we get to talk about it. And you get to yell at me.
I'm all up for any of that.
I think it will, I think it will make us look very professional. We're a bunch of really smart people and we have worked really hard on this. And we want to look really good when we go to select board, so we're gonna work on looking really good.
No problem. We can do an interactive PDF if you like.
Excuse
We can
me?
make our web page. Let's do it. Oh,
Well, I think to the presentation that we pulled together in part of the select board should give the reasons why
yeah.
we choose this reason. So like not just say, this is our
Yes.
proposal.
Oh,
No, we want
yes.
to put into that all the reasons why we think, that this proposal.
Oh, I
is the
think
best
that's,
thing for
yeah, of
the
course,
town
yes,
to use.
excellent.
So I'd like to remind us that hopefully we're gonna come up with one suggestion among us. We're gonna agree among ourselves. I would rather put the most time into what we come up with instead of giving a laundry list of
Well, I
proposals.
think we come up with a laundry list and then we pick one. Okay, but I think that it's fine for them to see our laundry list so they can better see with the reasons, they can better see why we picked.
I disagree.
No,
I do
disagree,
too.
yeah.
We want one proposal to the select board and the
That's
reasons why we chose it.
I
Yep.
completely
Okay.
agree, and we can go into the weeds.
Well, they
With that
can read that, they
proposal.
can read the laundry list on the minutes.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but I
Yeah.
really think we have to be committed to our decision and our reasons for that decision. We can spend as much time as we want on those,
yeah,
but I think we need to be the rejectors of the other ideas here in this committee.
that's fine.
The other thing
Fine.
we might come to is, just like any deliberative session, is, it may not be unanimous, but we make a decision and the final vote of the committee is the final vote of the committee. I mean,
Yeah,
somebody on the committee may not agree with the proposal, but whatever the majority says,
but everybody's gonna have their full say,
absolutely.
But I
which is
think,
why I like go-rounds, because when you have a go-round, nobody can interrupt.
oh, I'm an interrupter. I'm gonna interrupt right now.
You can't,
I think-
you get a time to comment, but you can't interrupt while
Okay.
somebody's,
But I think it's important that we each make a very convincing case to each other about what we decide.
yeah.
And hopefully we'll be able to convince
Yeah.
ourselves.
We've
of
learned
one
an
thing.
incredible amount.
I know, and that's why I'm saying we should probably categorize it and make it all available in a,
Well, all the minutes are up, the
I would
17th
recommend-
minutes went up today.
I would recommend between now and the next meeting, really think about it. Probably put some thoughts on paper, unless you're just not that type of person. We are gonna hear a little bit more next meeting, but from what I heard at this meeting, there's not a lot of new information,
Right.
it's just some.
and I actually think we need to look at the minutes ourselves and boil them down.
Mhm.
They're stream of consciousness, basically.
I like what Ed's saying, and I would propose that as an action item, we all come to the next meeting with our proposal and reasons.
I agree.
Have all your ducks in order, as if you're presenting it to the select board.
Well, we've got one more set of people to listen to. So it'll be not the next meeting where you finalize your proposal, but the following meeting.
But do we have a date of
December
certain?
5th and December 19th, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, if you do that, you're gonna be pushing into January.
Yeah,
You're not gonna get it done.
Right.
So I agree with Tom.
Oh,
Come
okay.
next meeting, ready to go.
Okay,
Not, that doesn't mean you can't tweak your notes if you learn something really good in the next meeting, but like,
Okay,
but if he
from what
had
I
it,
heard
that's
tonight,
fine.
there was
That's right.
very little new
and
information.
he
No.
has been giving us input all along. So there's not gonna be,
And I don't think you're gonna get a lot of new people in the next one.
No,
Well,
I'm
based
thinking
on-
that we got David.
How many people we had here tonight? I don't think there's gonna be
no.
hardly
And
anybody.
And it's
Harrison and Paul will be here for all our
You'll
meetings.
get the same people that you've
Yeah,
been getting. You got a
Harrison and
couple
Paul
new
are
people
gonna be
tonight,
here.
but They
They-
really didn't say a
They've been
lot.
here since the beginning
So,
and they always have something to say and that's fine. And we're delighted to have you, Kurt. You've got your hand up.
Yeah, just a clarification from the, town manager there. I understand if we sell the property or a portion of the property, anything above and beyond what was owed for taxes, fees, penalties, goes back to the previous owner or heirs or signs and all that fun stuff. Any money go back to a previous owner if the town just keeps the property as is?
yeah, we have to pay the difference between the appraised value and the taxes too.
Can you, I haven't seen anywhere
I'll
that's,
look for it, cause someone brought that to my attention. I was like, no, I don't think that's right. And I researched it and I'm like, okay, yeah, you're right.
yeah.
That's-
but I'm-
that's huge.
There's actually two things in it.
Like
Yeah,
that.
So you could almost say, thinking thoughtfully, I'm just, this is not my official opinion. You could almost say just putting it on the auction block, private sale with the stipulation of some limited development. Probably gonna go to the Hershaw's. They're probably just gonna let it sit there and use for recreation for the public. They may even help Enfield, you know.
Maybe, we'll see, cause
We'll
the
see.
Patches wanted it. They said they would leave it open.
The buckets are brutal,
But-
but in any case.
But with the patches, they wanted to use.
We
it for
haven't
sugar.
approved the minutes yet.
So
All in
either we can put
favor.
in the stipulation that that's not an acceptable use.
I think we did that already.
We could, or say,
Okay.
keep it open for public use.
Right, because if you have
And that
lines
would-
running around, you can't be walking these.
And that wouldn't cost the town anything, right? That would not cost the town any money.
the thing
Oh,
that scares,
eventually.
the thing that scares me about the
No,
Hitchcock
it's just land, right? Cause they're not
There's-
developing
Not if
it.
you sell it.
was time they,
You just sell it to private.
they talked about.
They could just sit
Get
there.
tax revenue depending.
Well,
on what they do.
can you, for instance,
This
if
time of
Patches
year.
wanted to expand their sugar
Well,
push there,
They're gonna
Could you
work with
lease
the
it?
conservation group and the town to
But I'm-
develop
I
trails.
think I
I
remember.
mean,
her saying
technically
that
you
they
could,
wanted
but we're not in the
to
real
build
estate
another
business
house
to lease
for their
land.
daughter's family.
I don't remember hearing that.
I mean, we need a reason
They
to
always
keep
said
it. We're
they
not
wanted to keep
supposed to as a municipality
that.
make revenue.
I'll remember.
that. Yeah. You don't go
Yeah.
back
So
to the others, too.
technically,
I don't-
well,
I mean,
what I was
technically by
thinking
law,
about
we'd have to
leasing
lease
it
it
is
for
not
what?
necessarily charging them, but you
Yeah,
could
no, I
permit
understand.
Patches to
But
sugar
again,
it.
We could,
We have stipulations on that land, what they can do with it.
but what we would do with that,
They wouldn't be able to do
So,
that.
if that's the
They could
case.
give us syrup.
yeah. we wouldn't be doing
Why not put it on the auction block, not sell it to
Right,
an
right.
individual?
Yeah, we can't necessarily.
Change the
Because no
motion to
developer-
adjourn.
No developer would come in to buy it if there's stipulations like that, because it doesn't make sense for them.
But sell it
So
to them
it's-
at fire sale and then give the
Then
money.
the town washes their hands of
Yeah.
any costs, but then the end result is the same for the community of.
Yeah.
It stays
Yeah.
land,
Yeah.
right? So it's.
And as long as it's.
So I
in
guess
that
the devil's in the
Get
details of the
130,000.
stipulations, what's reasonable for.
Yeah, she sent me that today. It's
You
like,
missed the last
yeah,
meeting.
did.
wonderful.
Yeah,
So the recreation,
not worth much.
They were not.
the head of the recreation said, if the town keeps it, they don't have money to do anything with it. They're gonna just leave it as is.
Yeah.
So another negative to the
Correct.
town keeping it.
Right,
Correct.
but there is a disconnect between volunteer, listening to Mr. Tice talk. And what,
Well, he's gonna talk at the next meeting, right?
yeah, we
Yes.
can ask him.
Right, yep.
Because he made it sound like, nah, it's not gonna be anything, everybody's a volunteer. But
What stipulations then? Private sale with what stipulations? That's the question. I mean, that's what we're all gonna have to think about, right? Or any stipulations? None?
Yeah.
But it's cheaper than paying this, I guess you get the fees back subdivided, but it probably makes sense just to think about stipulations.
I mean,
Sure,
I'm not a
everybody's a
hunter, but
motion to
I'm not in
adjourn.
favor of.
Somebody
having open
adjourn.
hunting.
I'm
Come
not
on.
either. What was
If you
that?
wanna have,
Let's go
if you
to-
wanna have a hiking trail. you want-
Hey, I need to.
Well, it's open for hunting right now.
There's a guy up there today.
You can make the motion.
Right,
I move that we adjourn and it needs no second.
Okay, I wanna, Kurt,
You can
You
stay
said
and
something
talk here
that wasn't
all night if
accurate.
you want to.
you said something that wasn't accurate.
Thank you.
What's that?
The lead stuff and strip mall stuff.
Yeah.
I've lived here 50 years.
Thank you.
It's been like that for 50 years.
I should
I
think you'd
have
want
a
to get
timeline
sleep.
thing.
Oh, and I think
I
the
forget
weather.
when it started.
The weather is nice and I want to go home.
Across the
All right,
street.
take
like
care.
where
My tractor back until
I
5
have a
o'clock
quick photo
tonight.
of the Valley News. and I think
I
it's,
know that photo,
yeah,
but it was more than 50 years ago. And it was, there were cornfields for sure. But like,
Have a good night. Enjoy the snow.
PetSmart is, that was.
It'll be
that was
fine if I get to plow it.
There was, grocery store for
Yeah.
Supreme.
Yeah.